What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is me, Tom of Top 10 Wrestling, and in one of my latest videos I discussed what I believed to be the worst match in the history of TNA Wrestling. That match being Jenna Maraska versus Sharmell. And I actually got many comments on that video talking about another match, saying that this match was the worst in TNA history. Now, I was not familiar with this match, and after seeing what this match was, I still wish I wasn't familiar with it. But today, we're going to be checking out the blindfold 6 Sides of Steel match. So yes, this video today is called the worst TNA match stipulation ever, because that's what I believe this match is. But before we do get into this video, be sure to subscribe with notifications on. Let's get into it. Yeah, just subscribe, yeah. So, in my eyes, this match is not the worst in TNA history. I still believe that to be Jenna vs. Sharmell because it's just so bad. But this, to me, is the worst match stipulation. TNA have been known during their time as a company for trying way too hard when it came to match stipulations. And I always thought that the worst TNA match stipulation was the Reverse Battle Royal, just due to how dumb of an idea it was, and how they did a second one despite the first one not working, and how they couldn't see it was a failure from a mile away. The Electric Steel Cage match is another terrible one, which I didn't even realise took place on the same show as the Blindfold Steel Cage match. The thing we're talking about in this video, of course, but a video on the Electric Steel Cage match will definitely be coming soon. I've said it 100 times now, but I will release that video one day. But yes, let's talk about the blindfolded 6 Sides of Steel match, and let's give some backstory to this match, talk about how this awful match idea came to be. So yeah, the match took place at Lockdown 2007 between Chris Harris, who's gonna knock your brains out, and James Storm. The two of them were a team, and this match came as a result of that team splitting up. So let's talk about how we got to that point. Chris Harris and James Storm were the two men that made up the successful TNA tag team of America's Most Wanted, or AMW, which I'll just be calling them for the rest of this video for time's sake. But the two men were long-time rivals on the independent scene and were given a tryout match against each other with TNA on June 1st, 2002, and TNA officials were obviously impressed because both wrestlers were subsequently signed to short-term deals. America's Most Wanted was officially formed on the June 26, 2002 NWA TNA pay-per-view, and they started teaming together from there. They were fairly quick in finding success, as it only took them 3 months as a team to win their first set of gold. They won the NWA World Tag Team Championships on the September 8, 2002 weekly pay-per-view by surviving a gauntlet for the gold match. They dropped the titles on November 13th to the Disciples of the New Church, before regaining them on January 8, 2003, and then dropping them once again 2 weeks later, this time to Elix Skipper and Low Key. A breakup angle between the two of them began to be teased between America's Most Wanted after there were tensions on the March 26, 2003 pay-per-view due to Harris, wait for it, wrestling a singles match and not a tag match. Ooh! Then, 2 weeks later on the April 9th, 2003 pay-per-view, hey, that's my second birthday, Harris was rumoured to be joining the Sports Entertainment Extreme stable due to him being spotted in their locker room. Tensions would flare further when Storm walked out on Harris in their tag match against Christopher Daniels and Elix Skipper on April 23rd, and a match was set between the two of them on May 7th. They faced off in a singles match, with Harris ultimately getting the win, and after the match, they teased breaking up, but ultimately, they shook hands. Soon after, Chris Harris would team with fellow Chris Sabin, in the Anarchy Alliance tag tournament, where the winning team gets a shot at the tag titles. Harris and Sabin won their first round match, but in the second round, Harris reintroduced James Storm as his partner, denounced joining the SEX, I hate those initials, and the band were back together. America's Most Wanted were back, baby. Storm and Harris would go on to win the tournament, and they would go on to face Triple X on June 25th and win the tag titles once again in what is considered to be a very good match, and a match that really cemented America's Most Wanted as a tag team. Anyway, we've talked about their origin story, we've talked about the time they nearly broke up. Let's fast forward to the time they actually did break up, now that I've explained everything. The next few years, a lot would actually happen for them. They would become 6-time NWA Tag Team Champions, Gail Kim would join the team, and at one point they'd even aligned themselves with Team Canada. By their breakup, America's Most Wanted had easily cemented themselves as one of TNA's greatest ever tag teams, but ultimately, all good things must come to an end, and on the December 14th, 2006 edition of Impact, America's Most Wanted wrestled LAX in a titles versus team match, a match with LAX's titles on the line and AEW's team on the line. I just said AEW, I meant AMW, ignore that, I'm going to leave that in. Basically, this match, if AMW lost, they would have to split up, and LAX ultimately won the match after James Storm turned on Harris and hit him with a beer bottle. Major foreshadowing to beer money in the future. On the January 11th, 2007 episode of Impact, Chris Harris did a sit-down interview where he implied that his wrestling career might be over because of James Storm's bottle attack. He wouldn't be seen on TV again until the Against All Odds pay-per-view on February 11th, 2007, in which he returned and attacked James Storm while sporting an eye patch. For several weeks, Harris would continue to attack James Storm, still while sporting the eye patch and selling James Storm's beer bottle attack from December, and their match was set for Lockdown. Now, Lockdown is a very unique show for TNA in the sense that every single match takes place inside the 6 Sides of Steel, which is pretty much a steel cage match in TNA. So what TNA does to try and make the steel cage matches unique from one another is they add certain stipulations and gimmicks to some of the cage matches, so it's not just an entire show of the same old steel cage match. For example, a staple match at Lockdown is the Lethal Lockdown match, a match where 2 teams wrestle each other with similar War Games rules, and it's just one of their better stipulations in general. This is one of the few good TNA match stipulations, and another match they have is the Escape match, which is an elimination match until the final 2, where they have to win by escaping the cage. Again, another good stipulation match and a good variation of the steel cage. Both these matches are, but the match that James Storm and Chris Harris had wasn't a good variation of the steel cage match. Let's get into it. At Lockdown 2007, the card was made up of your standard cage matches, but also on the card was an escape match and a Lethal Lockdown match like I mentioned, and also a special guest referee match, which again is perfectly fine. But then there was an electric steel cage match, one of the worst match stipulations, and even worse, the match we aren't even talking about in this video, which goes to show how bad of a stipulation Chris Harris and James Storm's match was, because their match stipulation was the blindfolded 6 Sides of Steel match. One of TNA's most successful tag teams of all time, their feud is going to a blow-off in a blindfolded 6 Sides of Steel match. Now, the whole reason of this match happening was to play into the storyline of Chris Harris's injured eye and make them both blind, so it's an even contest, I guess? Let's talk about this match. So they start off with putting the blindfolds on, and they do what they do for the majority of the match, and that's them not being able to find each other, walking around the ring, struggling to find their bearings. At one point, James Storm accidentally attacks the ref because he thinks that he's Chris Harris. This literally goes on for minutes, and the fans are just booing. The commentary are doing their best to try and sell this match, but it just ain't working. And at one point, they walk right by each other and don't touch each other, and the fans are just so annoyed because all they want is some wrestling. They finally bump into each other, and we thought we were finally going to get some action. They both swing with a punch and completely miss. The crowd are literally chanting, "We want wrestling" at this point, and understandably so. Chris Harris at one point manages to tackle James Storm, and again, we think we're finally getting some wrestling, but Storm immediately crawls away, depriving us of some actual wrestling in a wrestling match and getting major boos from the fans. Now, there is actually one pretty cool moment in this match, and that's when Chris Harris starts pointing around the ring, and the crowd starts cheering louder the closer he's pointing to Storm, and eventually he finds his way to Storm because of it, and we finally get some wrestling. Chris Harris socks Storm with a right hand so hard that his blindfold comes off, I don't know if this was an accident or not, but James Storm's blindfold comes off many times in this match. The crowd are chanting boring because the rest of this match is more or less the same. They look for each other, they find each other, there's minimal wrestling and almost no sequences or anything. One good spot happens where Harris hits Storm with a spear off the top rope. James Storm's mask falls off, of course, for about the 5th time. But ultimately, Storm wins the match when he takes his mask off while the ref isn't looking. He hits Harris with a super kick and then puts the mask back on while pinning Harris to make the ref think that he had the mask on the whole time. But yeah, that's how the match ended. Half a star, still better than Jenna Maraska versus Charmel, but not by much. And it's not that difficult to put on a better match than them. I probably could. After this, TNA would never do a blindfold 6 sides of steel match ever again, and probably for the better because it was an awful stipulation. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. So if you did enjoy, be sure to smack that like button. I'm going to explain in a video coming up soon why I haven't really been uploading all that much. I'm going to make like a little update video, talk about some plans, talk about uni life and how it's really difficult to upload because I have so much work, and addressing some frequently asked questions. But yeah, that's going to do it, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe with notifications on, follow me on Twitter at Topton Wrestling, my Instagram is at @I'mTomBell, check out my Patreon, links below. I need to promote that more. Goodbye and keep on rolling.